Well, it's that time of the year again. Let's expand the playoffs some more, shall we? We go through a bunch of comments made by the Big 12 commissioner, the SEC commissioner, and just what we actually think should happen. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. Boy, it's all that. There's always that time in the offseason where it's either, teams going to different conferences, coaches, saying some crazy stuff, or commissioners saying some crazy stuff. And we're going to get to a lot of that today because it seems like almost every single conference is having their, what do you call it? Summer meetings? Would it be summer meetings?
Spring meetings. Spring meetings.
I was about to say, we're not even in summer yet, but lots being said, and we're going to get to it because I think me and Nick both have thoughts. But Nick, another Friday, another episode. We're going strong. How we doing?
Doing great. I'm glad we held off on this conversation. We almost talked about it last week. I'm glad we held off till this week because perfect timing with all these spring meetings. And then today, as we're recording, you get Brett Yormark talking about the topic. So it kind of is a perfect little setting for us to break down everything they said and for us to give our takes. And I know we both have some interesting takes on this.
And we don't know each other's takes, which is always helpful. Usually we do think similarly, but I don't know about today. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that you do. I'll say it off the top. I keep saying it each week, but we've got some exciting stuff that we're doing in June that you guys won't see until July. But me and Nick have some exciting stuff. Stephen Leonard is highly involved. So all I'm going to say is just I would follow my Twitter. I would follow Nick's Twitter. I would follow Stephen's Twitter. I'd follow the Charge On Twitter. All of that is down below. Because there's going to be some stuff pushed out on socials next week that I think everybody's going to want to kind of take a look at if you're a UCF fan. So be on the lookout for that. Just heads up. But let's get in to the main conversation, which is, frankly, college football is just dying by the day. It's dying by the day. I don't even know where to start on this, Nick. I think we could just start in general about the playoff expansion and everything that's been going on conversation-wise, which is that it just seemed like the minute the 12-team playoff was agreed to and accepted, everybody's been envisioning expanding the playoff. The minute 12 teams was what happened, it's like, are we going to go to 14 or are we going to go to 16? They're like, we know we're not staying at 12, which I think me and you both agree that's ridiculous. I think with anything that you start, you need to at least do it for 5 years or so until you fluctuate it or change it. I don't think the first year of the 12-team playoff was bad. I think it worked out perfectly. I think everybody got the chance that they were supposed to get. I don't think anybody was left out. I don't think anybody that was on the outside looking in had such a good resume that another team made it over them. I think everything worked out how it was supposed to. But as we know, especially in today's age of college football, in college athletics, that is not the case. Change is inevitable, and people want change quickly. So it seems like an inevitability that the college football playoff is going to increase. And it kind of seems like they're just going to bypass 14 and go to 16. Well, each commissioner is having their own kind of take on it, obviously. And Greg Sankey has been known to be in favor. It seems like the SEC, Nick, and the Big 10 are highly in favor of 4 automatic bids for the SEC, 4 automatics for the Big 10, 2 each for the Big 12 and ACC, and then the 1 G5 qualifier. Let's get to Greg Sankey's comments. You, I think, have them up. I think you see his comments. How about we read those comments and then kind of give our take on everything that Greg Sankey said, obviously the commissioner of the SEC.
Well, he said a lot. He certainly has said a lot this week, and I think he's gone after, the ACC and the Big 12 as well, a little bit with some of his comments. But, Greg Sankey has been on record before talking about the fact that, the SEC and the Big 10, they're in favor of each having the automatic bids under this 14 or 16, team playoff proposal type deal, where it sounds like you would have the 4 conference champions, and then you would have the group of 5 highest ranked champion. So there's 5 that would be in. And then 4 SEC schools then, and then 4 Big 12, and then the rest are filled in, if my math is
Big
correct
10,
there.
yeah.
For the Big 10.
Yeah.
Greg Sankey's got a job to do. Okay. And you could argue Greg Sankey does a really, really good job at what he does. Okay. And his job is to have the best interests of the Southeastern Conference in mind. And he has to answer to all of those administrators and all those athletic directors when they're sitting at the round table, right? So I get it. But this idea that just college football has to just revolve around 2 conferences, I think it's a shame. I think it's an absolute shame. I think most people probably feel that way. And to this whole point about the playoff expanding to 12, I think everybody was probably in favor of that. We needed to get away from 4. We needed to open up the guardrails a little bit and create more competition. And I think we had just a great playoff that we saw. Of course, there's going to be first round blowouts. I mean, that happens across in playoffs and all sports. We get blowouts all the time. That's going to happen. But can we establish some more data points before we start to just blow everything up and start to take this in a direction that I don't think we should at this moment? Yes, under the 12-team format, was it majority SEC and Big 12 teams or Big 10 teams in the playoff? Yes, it was. Is that guaranteed to be going forward and every single time we have this playoff? I don't know. That's why we play the games. And I just feel like we're using data from one year to go, see, the SEC and the Big 10 run college football. They should get the majority of the spots in the college football playoff, and we go from here. I just don't like that structure at all. I think when you do that, you do sort of kill some of the fabric of college football, and you make it incredibly difficult for the other conferences to even compete. And it goes further than just getting into the playoff. When you're trying to recruit, when you're trying to go through the transfer portal, it makes it incredibly difficult because, yes, at the end of the day, in this sort of wide open NIL era that we're in right now, until something changes, you can always be able to buy a roster and things like that and try to put the best team together that you can that way. But as time goes on, if you're just giving automatic bids to SEC and Big 10 schools, the top players, if they want to win and they want to play at the top, if they want to play at a level where they're in the playoff potentially, they're going to go to those schools. And I'm so fundamentally against all of that. So again, I understand Greg Sankey's got a job to do and he's doing it to the best of his ability. And I'm sure the SEC folks love him, but I just don't understand why the sport has to revolve around these 2 conferences.
Yeah. And to be fair, I agree with you. Greg Sankey does a really good job. He does not care about the greater college football landscape. He cares about pushing the narrative of the SEC, which he's doing a good job. I know he posted or he handed out today a bunch of data on why an SEC regular season is just different. And if anything, it shows the Big 12 and the Big 10 on a comparable level. And we are a UCF podcast, and this is really, how does this affect a team like UCF? It affects the greater college football world, but how does it affect UCF? And when you have an SEC commissioner, which, yes, everybody knows the SEC is the best conference in college football. Everybody knows that most of the teams in the SEC, probably the top half, are top-tier teams, and they're going to be every year. The way that he was emulating today, and the way that he was kind of talking, and he might not have meant to do this, I think he did, but the way he was coming across is basically any team that is on the bubble, if they're a SEC team, they should be in. It doesn't matter who they're competing with. If they are an SEC team, they need to be in because the SEC regular season doesn't compare to a Big 12, Big 10, ACC regular season. To me, I think that's blatantly ridiculous. And if you want, I don't think it's ridiculous that the regular season is not tougher. It is. The SEC's regular season is tougher than every other conference in football. But then you are basically saying it does not matter how many losses a team takes. It doesn't matter because you're just playing better competition. And to me, if you want to do that, then the SEC should just go make their own playoff. Because at that point, that's what it will be. It will be an SEC playoff anyway. It practically is. The whole reason this is all we're blowing smoke of this is because Alabama didn't make the playoff last year in the 12-team format. And so now that is the talking point of this year. How Alabama didn't make the playoff, even though if you go back and look at the losses they took and the teams that they almost lost to, they weren't a very good football team. They didn't deserve to be in over some of the teams that did make it. So that's where this conversation's coming from. You have Greg Sankey kind of just saying the SEC deserves every single thing it comes to and everybody else can kind of piss off. And then you have Brett Yormark, who comes out, and I like Brett Yormark. I do. I'm a fan of Brett Yormark. I think he's done wonders for the Big 12. I think you can make the argument, obviously, outside of adding UCF and those 4 schools from the ACC and then BYU, 3 schools from ACC and BYU. When he stepped in, he's done a fabulous job getting the 4 corner schools. He's done a great job. Maybe it's I don't know what I want, Nick, but he came out and said that the Big 12 really wants to adopt the 5+11. So the 5 champs and then the 11 bids after that.
And he did say, to be fair, he did say there was some support in the SEC for that model.
Yes. Of course there is. Like, here's my thing. I don't like this. Now, granted, it doesn't matter what I like. I mentioned Greg Sankey's the 4-4-2-2-1. I don't think that's right because that's 13, so I'm off. Maybe I have to find Sankey's exact.
It's the 4-4-2-2-1. That's what it is. I know the Big Ten has certainly backed that. I know that.
Well, yeah, and that makes sense. But
yeah, and the 2 and 2 would be the 2 Big 12 and then 2 ACC and the 1 at large.
But how would you get to 16? Because it's 13. The 4-4-2-2-1 is 13. That's what I'm... Look this up, because I'm pretty sure that's what they've been talking about for months, was that 4-4-2-2-1. So,
it would be 4... You get 4 Big 10 and 4 SEC, 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, 1 bid for the highest ranked group of 6, and then 3 at-large bids. That's
okay, that makes sense. Okay, 3 at-large bids. That's what I was missing. Okay, that makes sense. Here's my issue. And granted, I don't like either of these options. So, it doesn't matter what I think.
So you don't like the 5 and 11 either?
Can I give you my take or my thought?
Go ahead.
So, here's generally what I'm thinking. If I'm Brett Yormark, the whole thing is I want to have at least 2 Big 12 teams in the playoff each year. That's genuinely what I want. I understand where he's coming from. I understand why he wants the 5-for-11. I think I like the 5-for-11 more, but I think the nervousness that I get, and if you're a UCF, you are trying to push for a playoff spot. That is what you are trying to do. You have to get to a conference championship first, but you are trying to push for the playoffs. At 5-for-11, Nick, you'll get 1. Let's be real here. I think everybody knows it. Those 11 other bids are going to be SEC and Big 10 teams probably every single year. Because at that point, Brett Yormark says, let's figure it out on the field, which is true. I understand that. Who's picking the teams? If it's the same people that were picking the playoff, it's the same people that are doing the same things, they're going to know, okay, we have 11 spots that we can fill for the non-conference champions. You really think a Big 12 school? Now, I'm sure some years there will be, but how likely is it in that format that there will be 2 Big 12 schools? Probably not.
I mean, even look at they even look at it like this, Sean. In this 12-team playoff format last year, everybody was focused on the fact that, Alabama didn't get in and Ole Miss didn't get in. And even people were talking about South Carolina, who I just genuinely never thought had a resume or an argument to even get in. I really didn't understand that. Everybody, raised their hands in the air from the SEC side of why aren't these schools getting a look? Well, what about from the Big 12? I mean, BYU was a 2-loss team that at one point was ranked, I think, as high as 6 maybe in the playoff rankings, maybe the first ones that came out. And I understand they lost 2 games, but losing 2 games, it took them completely out of it. and they were all the way down at like 18 or 19 by the time we got to the actual playoff reveal. And then they went and smacked Colorado in the bowl game that they had, and everybody was like, "Oh, maybe we should have taken a longer look at BYU." Like BYU finished 11-2, and they weren't even considered for the college football playoff. And we're talking about 3 lost teams in the SEC getting in. And I understand they're going to raise the strength of schedule argument and everything. And you can say that the more you expand it, it's going to be the same thing again. Like if we had a 16-team model this past year, would BYU have gotten in? No. The answer is no. They weren't even in the top 16. So listen, I'm not saying that the Big 12 is not going to get the shaft, and no matter what, the Big 12, I should just group the Big 12 and the ACC together probably. I'm not saying they're not going to get the shaft in whatever playoff model you sort of pick, but I sort of kind of gravitate to if we're going to expand this thing to 16, and I would probably tell you right now, like I think 12 is enough. I think 16 is just too much. I like 12, but if we are going to go to 16 and there seems to be nothing that's going to get in the way of that at this point because there's so much support for it, 5 and 11, I don't know what else are you going to do? Like, let it play out on the field, and if it ends up being a bunch of SEC and Big Ten schools, then whatever. Like, I mean,
but that's where it's going to be anyway. So
it's probably going to be anyway, but it's just, I don't know.
This is where Arizona State got all the way to 12. Like, they were in the Week 16 ranking, they were 12. They did get saved. Basically, they got the 4th seed because they were a conference champion. And
right.
That's what the SEC and Big Ten doesn't want. They think that's ridiculous. They think that it should be just the pure ranking. They just think if you're a conference champion, you get an automatic bid to the playoff, but you're not. I don't think any of them want it to be the first 4 rankings or the first 5 rankings.
And what happens too, if you did the model, back to the 4-4-2-2-2-1 thing, what's going to stop the top schools in the ACC from eventually just saying, well, we're going to split? If the other conferences are going to get that many bids and we're only going to get 2, which hurts us completely. We already know that Florida State wants out of the ACC. I have to think Clemson and Miami probably wants out too, but they're going to let Florida State take all the bullets at the moment. What's going to stop those teams from saying, well, we have to now leave in those conferences? So let's just say hypothetically those 3 schools, and throw North Carolina maybe in there as well, all split between the SEC and the Big Ten, creating 2 mega conferences. Then what's left in the ACC? And then they'll going to start
the Big 12.
They'll start the argument of like, well, there's no point of having the 2 ACC bids anymore, and there's no point in having the 2 Big 12 bids anymore. And it's going to you're going to get to a point where you're going to have the 2 mega conferences. Like, to me, no matter how you slice it, that seems to be the path that we are unfortunately going down. Is there are going to be 2 mega conferences that are going to be like 20 teams deep, and then the Big 12, which seems like it's a safe place at the moment, speaking to UCF, won't be so safe anymore.
I disagree with you on that. Like, I understand it's like, I think that is far away. We've talked about it. The ACC is a dead man walking, and according to this podcast, the ACC is dead. Like, at some point, those teams are going to get out, and they're going to go to the SEC or the Big Ten or the Big 12. Like, you mentioned some of those schools. Some of those schools might go to the Big 12 because they might want to be the big dog. They might not want to go to the SEC. I think the Big 12 is in a very good position to be that third conference. I do. That's good for UCF. You don't want to be in the ACC. My issue is with the 4-4-2-2-1. I don't like it. But with the Big 12 gets 2 bids every year. Then there's 3 at-large bids. So if the Big 12, you have a chance, even though it's not a high chance, you have a chance to get a 3rd team in there with that model. And I understand, I don't love it. That's what I don't love either of these. I don't want 16 teams. The 5 and 11, I can wrap my brain around it, but my fear is, okay, the Big 12 champion gets in, and then the 11 teams are going to automatically be SEC and Big 10. And then there's going to be no room for ace. The ACC maybe has a better chance at some of the areas. They just have some, higher blue bloods like Clemson can get in there probably. Miami might be able to sneak in one of those at 11 at large. But my fear is the Big 12 will only have one every single year doing that 5 and 11. Clearly, Yormark, I think, believes that is his best chance for 2. And he doesn't want to just gift the SEC in big. Like, I understand why he doesn't want to do the 4-4-2-2-1, because then that is almost conceding, like, okay, we're going to bow down to the SEC in Big Ten. So I completely understand that. But at the same time, with the 5 and 11, that's probably what it's going to be anyway. So why not kind of secure yourself with 2 bids at minimum? So you're
saying,
one.
so if I'm following your argument correctly, your concern is that if you do 5 and 11, you think that Big 12 will probably only have one team. And at least doing
they would have this past year.
At least
they would have had one team.
Okay, and then at least doing the 4-4-2-2-1, you're at least guaranteeing yourself 2.
You guarantee
and then maybe you have a chance at getting one of the 3 at large.
Yes, like it's a small chance, but and again, I don't love that because you are conceding that
I just don't like just giving away bids to whoever, because I mean there's going to be years where not every conference is going to be up. Like,
yeah,
I don't think
but we know, Nick, okay, like for the 5 chance, okay, 1 to each. All right, we're all even. In that 11, okay, say the ACC has a good year. Okay, you're still going to have, out of those 11, 4 SEC at least and 4 Big Ten at least. Like, there's going to be, out of that 11, there's going to be 8 in the SEC and Big Ten. So then you're going to have another 3 at large. So what? Okay, the ACC maybe has a good year, and you have, at most, let's just say the ACC gets 4 teams in. Okay, that'd be 3. That won't happen. So you're basically, the Big 12 and the ACC are fighting for spots, but then you have like the G6. Like, what if a G6 team has a really good year and makes its way up and gets one of those at large?
And my thing too with the G6, it's like we just saw a damn good G6 team in Boise State get to the playoff, and we saw what sort of happened to them when they played Penn State. It's not that they weren't competitive, but at no moment did you really think they were a threat to win that football game. And I would tell you, the more this goes on, are we going to see another team even close to Boise State was last year from the group of 6?
You will, you are going to.
I feel like we're throwing a bone to the group of 6 because we want to show everybody that, oh, look how inclusive we are. We're allowing a group of 6 to get in. But let's be really honest about this. The group of 6 teams, the best group of 6 team that you're seeing coming through is not on the level of a 2017 UCF or a 2018 UCF or a 2021 Cincinnati or a 2024 Boise State. That's not going to be a thing. So you're already going to have a placeholder that's in this thing that, to be honest, probably has no business being there.
100%. 100%. And there's always going to be like that one group of 6 team every couple of years that is like a Boise or a UCF or a Cincinnati that kind of just like takes that leap. I think it will happen every couple of years. I'm just saying, like, I think we all don't like this. I think SEC fans obviously like it. I think Big Ten fans obviously like it because if I'm a fan of the SEC and Big Ten, I just want my team to be okay, which means I just want my conference to dominate and be fine. If you're in the ACC and Big 12 right now, like UCF is, the goal needs to be, you need to come out of these type of deals with half of what you want. You don't want to be at the table and get big broed by the other conferences. And I think if you're UCF, like I said, I think you don't want to be in the ACC. You don't want to be in the ACC. Like, I'm not trying to poo-poo on the ACC. You just have schools there that know that they want to leave. They don't want to be there. Whatever the year is,
I trust
schools
the leader.
might act.
Yeah, and I trust the leadership of Brett Yormark over Jim Phillips any day of the week.
100%. And that's why
I almost feel like Brett Yormark is doing like the best possible job he can to try to fight, uphill right now.
And that's why, even though when I heard him say like we're so for the 5 and 11, even though I'm like, I don't love it, I trust Brett Yormark to be like, okay, clearly there's something to this. Like, clearly he really wants this. But here's also my thing. If these are your only 2 options, then okay, like, I understand. You have to pick one. I understand why he wants the 5+11. Is there no other thought process that we can do? And again, it's not going to be even. Like, I guess that is the most even way to do it, and that's why Brett Yormark wants it. Because if you just give 4 and 4 to the Big Ten and SEC, I get how that is just kind of conceding. But at the end of the day, for the betterment of the Big 12, I mean, you had Arizona State in there, should have beat Texas, but that was your only school. In this 5+11, let's be honest with ourselves. Is this committee, or is any committee, unless you have 2 powerhouse Big 12 teams, is any committee going to put 2 Big 12 teams in a 5+11 format? I don't think so. I think it'll be whoever the conference champion is.
It's just really tough because, you can compare the schedules, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Big 12 plays the same schedule as the SEC does. Like, I'm not that stupid. Like, I'm not going to say that.
Nobody's saying
that. But the quality of a Big 12 team, like they're just built differently than what an SEC or like a Big 10 school is going to be made of. Like it just is. Like, that. Like the SEC and some of these Big 10 schools are going to have, a lot more of a flashier type roster. The Big 12 is really not going to have that. It's going to be a very veteran, sort of laden team, probably built primarily through the transfer portal with a lot of veterans who are productive. Like that's going to be the difference between a Big 12 team that's at the top and then like an SEC Big 10 school, comparing it to like, the Oregons of the world, the Ohio States of the world, and so on.
I just want to go through Penn State's schedule really quickly. And I was just thinking logically here, or not logically, just off the cuff. They play at home against Nevada, at home against FIU, and at home against Villanova. Okay. Those are 3 layup games. Fine. Okay, then you get Oregon at home. That's tough. UCLA. That's a cakewalk. Like, what I'm trying to, emulate, they play Northwestern, Iowa, Ohio State, tough. Indiana, new staff, but, tough. They had the season they had last year, but good team. Michigan State.
Will it continue?
Yeah, will it continue? Michigan State, Nebraska, so that's solid, and Rutgers. No offense. Yes, you have the powerhouse teams that you play. You play in Ohio State. You play in Oregon. You play in Iowa. It's a tough game. Like they're tough defense. They're a tough team. You play in Nebraska. Half the Big Ten stinks. Like half the Big Ten isn't good. And I understand we're talking about the SEC, and I understand it's SEC, whatever, SEC bias. But it's like we put these certain conferences on pedestals just because of a schedule they play. The Big 12 schedule is probably not as heavy tough.
What are the only givens?
Tough.
The only givens in the Big 10 are what? Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Penn State. Who are the other givens? Who are the other givens? And I know Indiana just had a great year and everything, but who are the other givens that you can count on are always going to be good every year right now?
In the Big Ten, nobody.
There's nobody. I think the Big Ten is overrated as a conference to begin with, and I understand. And I know saying that they just had the last 2 national championships. I get all that, okay, and they proved that on the field when they play all the other teams. I'm not saying those are not great teams, but I feel like the overall strength of that conference gets massively overrated mostly every year. Like I agree with you. Like we're talking. I mean that's still a conference. I mean Purdue and Rutgers and Northwestern and blah, blah, blah. I guess you could throw Illinois in there, by the way, because a lot of people are very high on them
that's
this
true.
year as a team. But that's more of a newer development. So, but also it's important to mind, it doesn't sound like the SEC and Big Ten are exactly, lockstep on everything right now, because if you sort of read some of the quotes from Tony Petitti, who's the Big Ten commissioner, and he was talking about how the fact that the SEC was considering the 5-11 very seriously. And he said that for the last few weeks and even months, like they've been on the 4-4-2-2-1 format. And that was what they were all for. And then it almost was like surprising to them that all of a sudden now the coaches came in and they're not in agreement with that. It seems like they're more on the 5-11 schedule. So like Nick, the Big Ten and the SEC don't even seem to be like they're like even in agreement with this.
But don't you think that should be a little bit of the Big Ten and SEC say they're open to it, and that if we're being honest, I think that is going to be the one that gets approved, because I think it's a hard sell to teams about the 4-4, like 4 automatics for both of those conferences. But don't you think it's odd that now all of a sudden they kind of seem open to it? Like the SEC and Big Ten are like, yeah, like we're open to that. I think they're open to it because they know out of those 11 bids, you're going to be flooded with SEC. You're going to flood it.
You feel like you can get even more of your,
so it's
your
like,
teams in there.
That's where I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I get
I see your point. I just am saying, like, from a Big 12, like, I understand, like, you're saying, like, at the whole 4-4-2-1-1, like, at least it gives you 2 bids. Like, and let's come out with something. Let's at least say we get 2 in there, and then we'll do our absolute darndest to try to get another one in there. If you have 3 of the 16, you're probably over the moon with that, right? The more I hear you talk about it, like, I get your perspective, because it's very likely.
I'm not trying to push that, like, that's way better. Like, all I'm trying to say is if I'm thinking in terms for UCF and, like, best case scenario to get to the playoff, it's tough in that 5-11. That is tough. You have to, like, change the mindset of the guys picking these teams to basically be like, we want 2 Big 12 teams in there, because that wouldn't have been the case this past season. I think the next closest was BYU, and they wouldn't have gotten in this format. So that's where I struggle.
I wonder if it changes the way some of the teams in the conference then schedule for the future. I mean, you would think it'd have to, because at some point, if your schedule's not going to get the respect in that committee room, you're at some point going to have to adjust your own schedule. And when you're thinking about conference games, you're going to try to have to schedule at least a team in the SEC or the Big Ten, and you have to go win that football game.
You know what I'd rather have? Just spitballing. And granted, I'm good with either of these. I have 2 options. Listen, I'm not naive enough to think, like, we are understandable that basically we are at the feet of the SEC and Big Ten. That is where college football is right now. And I know they're not going to want to, they wouldn't want to do this because this is stupid for them. But for college football, I think this would be the best case scenario. 2 automatic bids for each conference, 1 automatic G6, and then, 7 total after that? 7 bids for the next highest ranked?
I'd be more comfortable with that, yeah.
Like, give 2 automatic bids to each conference, and then if the SEC and Big Ten get... No, but, like, to be fair, that's closer to Sankey's, because all the difference is Sankey, they want 4 automatics for each SEC and Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, if you do 7 other teams, to me, if you do 4-4-2-2-1, that's just an open acknowledgement of, like, we should no longer call it the Power 4. Like, there's no sense in even saying that. Like, to me, that's the death. I mean, we already don't have a Power 5 anymore. To me, that's the death of the Power 4, which was a short-lived sort of tenure. Like, that's what that signals to me. Is that what we want for college sports?
I don't think anybody
wants
football,
that.
Rather. I think the only people that want that is the SEC and the Big Ten. I don't think anybody else wants that. But I think the issue is nobody has a say.
This is just a grander scheme of things. Like, I am starting, and this has been happening for the last few years now, but every time the off season comes around, I just get really irritated. I get really irritated because full disclosure, I hate having to talk about this stuff. I really do, because it's exhausting, and it feels like what happens on the field for 3 hours and change every Saturday is so secondary when it comes to the overall discussion of college football. I think it's sad. I think Saturday game days, there's been a lot of discussion of this week I've seen on social media and from some shows around the country. Do Saturdays still feel the same? There's all this nonsense going on during the off season and off the field, but when we get to Saturdays, do they still feel the same? I think the answer is no. I don't think they feel the same, Sean. I really don't. I feel like we've gotten to that point where I don't think Saturdays feel the same for every program around the country because of everything that goes on leading up to those games. I feel like we've gotten to that point, and that makes me really sad that it's come to this point, but I feel like we're at a point of no return. We can't just go back and assign everybody else in their conference when we had some sort of balance. I know, like, at the end of the day, even if you take Texas and Oklahoma away from the SEC, you're like, is that still going to be the best conference in college football? Probably so. but by having Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12 and having the Pac-12 alive, which the last year of the Pac-12 that we saw in 2023 was a damn good year for the Pac-12. We had balance in this sport, and we still felt like a lot of schools still had a shame. I mean, we've totally undone that, and that really gets on my nerves, and that's just an overall point.
It's a good point. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. I don't think SEC fans would agree, because I think SEC fans are living in a different world than we all are. I think it's easy to wake up an SEC fan because you know that at the end of the day, you're fine. Everybody else, it just seems like, to your point, you almost have to set expectations differently.
No, and it goes
10 years ago, 10 years ago, if you were in any of these conferences, you could dream big every single season. Every single offseason, you could dream big because you have an opportunity. Everybody would have a fair shake. Obviously, you have if you're in the SEC, you have a better chance than others to kind of state your case. But if you were in the Pac-12 or if you were in the ACC, you had a chance to make your case and to get to the promised land. I think now it's more so, people like to use the word invitational, but yeah, if you are a team like Arizona State, they had to basically be perfect to get even the slightest opportunity to get into the playoff.
Yeah,
if you were BYU,
it feels like if you're in the ACC or the Big 12, you're almost still playing under the BCS model in a way. You're basically playing BCS football where every week you know that if you lose one game, you're on the chopping block. Whereas if you're in the SEC or the Big 10, you could lose 3 games. You could lose 3 games. Like,
they're complaining about Alabama. Alabama had 4 losses.
These conferences are not even playing the same sport. They're just not.
Alabama had 4 losses, and we're still complaining about them not making it into a 12-team playoff. But that's where we're at, because they were SEC, and it's Alabama. They should just be gifted a spot. I think it's ridiculous, and I get it.
And it's based on what they had done leading up to it, which was not relevant to what they were last year.
But I guess everybody just wants to see the same teams in there every year. And, if you are that type of person that want to see the same teams.
I'm just, college football is just sort of the last 4 years. I mean, you could take this even further, and I don't want to, belabor every point, obviously, but it's just sort of my frustration as we're sort of talking just about this one point. I mean, there's certain rivalry games that we don't even get to see anymore, between schools all over the country. It's like, obviously, from this case, we don't even get to see UCF and USF anymore. I still wish we had that game on the schedule. I still wish we had Oklahoma State and Oklahoma on the schedule. It just feels wrong that game's not being played every year. And now they're talking about, the whole Notre Dame USC thing might no longer be on the table. Like, you just have all these things that have sort of just reached a head right now because we've just let it, fester, and we've let it just take over everything. And there's so much freaking negativity around this sport right now, and it shouldn't be that way. This is the second largest sport in the country. It is. And we're talking about things that have nothing to do with the on-field product. And I feel like that's what college football and college sports has always been. It's all been but what happens on Saturday. And I don't think it is anymore.
No, because every day you wake up and something can be different.
It's something new. And it even I told you I didn't want to talk about it on the pod. I was going to mention it, though. It's like you even have the NCAA president, Charlie Baker, and I don't even know what authority they have anymore. But he's talking about how, this year they want to try 72 or 76 teams in March Madness. Like, if there's anything we don't need to change whatsoever, it's that. But now we have to do that too.
No, and to be fair, that helps UCF. Like, UCF would be in the tournament.
Sure,
but again, that is awful.
It's not. There's nothing wrong with 66. There's never been anything wrong with 66. We don't need 72. We don't need 76. We don't need to water this down anymore.
Guys, that a good conversation. But what do you think? What would you do? I don't think anybody has an answer. We only had 1 year of the 12-team playoff, and now we're basically.
I feel like on this whole podcast, like, we've raised some good points, I think, me and you, but at the same time, I feel like myself, it's like I almost feel like I'm talking in circles because I'm trying to explain something that's unexplainable. I'll be sitting here today. If you put me on the spot and said, "Okay, well, Nick, what would be your desired, I don't know.
No, I would say let's have another 4 years of the.
I would prefer we just stick this out with 12 and go from there. And let's make this exclusive. Playoffs should be excluded. I'm like this across all sports, Sean. I don't like how in Major League Baseball we added another wild card to the mix, or 2 wild cards. I think 7 teams make the playoffs. Remember when 5 used to make it? I enjoyed 5 making the playoffs. The NFL added an extra wild card. We're now 14 teams make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So almost half the league makes the playoffs in the NFL.
I like what the NBA did. I like what the NBA did with the play-in. Like you put 7 through 10 and they play it out to. I like that because I think that promotes that you need to be better throughout the year. And you can't just skate your way. Like, if you're the 7th seed, you can't just skate to the end of the year. You have to fight for every win. And I think that's proven to be good. But obviously, it's a different sport. College football is a different sport than the NBA. And I think I understand where the SEC and Big Ten are coming from. I get they're going to do whatever they need to do to protect their conference. But at the same time, the Big 12 and the ACC are going to do the same thing. And I think there needs to be, we want to see competition. We want to see it on the highest level possible, but we also just don't want to see 2 conferences run rampant over every opportunity they can get, because then what is the fun of college football? You're just seeing the SEC every week. And I know people like that, but there's a lot more states than SEC country, to be fair. So let us know what you think. What do you think is the best way forward? Like I said, my optimal thing is not what will ever get approved, because I want everything to be equal. And as we know in this world, that's never the case. You don't get equal. You just get what you can get, and you don't throw a fit. So drop in the comments below what you think, Nick. Any final thoughts?
I'm exhausted. Like my brain hurts. I just, I don't know.
Good final thought.
I don't know. I feel like, again, I'm trying to make sense of all this stuff, and I'm trying to be as rational as I can with my comments, but I just am so frustrated with college football right now. I really, every offseason that comes, it's to me, it's like the longest offseason of any sport. That's what it feels like.
3 more months. 3 more months. 3 more months. Technically 2 more months, and then we get training camp, which we drop all this talk. But like I said, let us know what you guys think. Drop it down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share. Do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Like I said, follow me. Follow Nick. Follow Steven. Exciting stuff coming in the pipeline. We're going to have a lot of announcements in the next month or so. So be on the lookout for that. All right, everybody. This has been Charge On. We will see you next week.